Hey guys, uh, hope you're having a good day. You're learning a lot, and things are going great. I guess I'm really excited to welcome you all to this WordCamp India that's happening for the first time over here. Uh, I will be sharing some of my knowledge with you, and hopefully, I hope that it helps you out. It helps you in some or the other way in your journey with WordPress. Um, Whatever information I have is based on my experience with hosting and WordPress. I've been in this industry for the last 15 plus years now, so uh, excited to share this with you. With that, I will just share my screen and start the presentation. Uh, yes. So yeah, here it goes. Yeah. So again, welcome all of you. Uh, So my topic today is going to be choosing the right hosting for your WordPress powered website. Uh, I believe this is a topic that all of us at some or the other point in our career always or the journey always had to think about on how we go ahead with this, uh, how to choose your hosting. Uh, Hosting is not as simple as it used to be, as in if you had started 10, 15 years back, there was just one flavor, two things available, and everybody used to choose either one or the other depending on the resources they needed. As in there were times when hosting packages were 2 MB and 1 MB and 3 MB good, as in those days are long gone with the increase in resources and what's available. And again, uh, what's expected by the clients has also changed, right? As in what you expected 10 or 15 years back on your mobile or on your computer is completely different from what you expect now. So the servers have also evolved, and yeah, start right into this and see how we can take this up. So the first thing to remember, you can spend from nothing, literally just make tweaks to your site to do whatever you can think of, throw as much as money that you have uh, when it comes to spending on hosting. So it depends on what you actually need to do or what is your use case. Remember, one size does not fit all. So once you go to a site saying that okay, unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, we fulfill all your needs in $2, $3, $4. Do you think you can afford to do that? As in, just logically thinking, that's obviously not possible, right? So understand, one size does not fit all. You need to think of what's your use case, what is your target audience, what are you trying to do, how many users are needed. There are 20 things that are needed before you try and start thinking of, okay, this is the best product to buy or this is the best package to buy for me. So always keep this in mind. You have to build or select resources based on your use case. So how do you choose a host, like your hosting provider? Again, as I said, what is your use case? What are you trying to build? Are you trying to build a 1 or 5 page website? A small company just has its portal online which shows one page with its products, second page is contact and stuff like that. Is that your use case, or do you have a heavier use case? You have somebody with photography sites, do you have somebody who's offering videos or training, LMSs? But that's like a good use case these days. So depending on that, you'll have to understand what is that you choose. uh, Again, what are the general types of hosting that are offered? There are a lot of hosting that are offered. When you go to a hosting provider's website, frankly, there are at least 3 to 4 hosting providers, 3 to 4 types of hosting packages that everybody offers. What should you choose? How do you understand what works for you? How much money should you spend? There are other keywords as well, as in, uh, if you go into a little bit more technicality, what is your expectation when it comes to load speeds, time to first byte? When I say time to first byte, from the time somebody puts in your site, hits enter, to the time they start seeing some content or the server starts responding, are you looking at those kind of response times and stuff? Then obviously you have to think on other terms as well. uh, no matter what, one thing that you always need to remember: choose a reliable vendor, choose a vendor that has been in this business for some time. There is reliability accreditation, they have teams who can handle issues if there is a downtime, if there is an attack on their servers, if they're in a data center, their ISP is under attack. Like 10 years back, 12 years back, uh, attacks on networks were like 1 gig and stuff. Now it's like 100 gigs, 200 gigs and stuff. So frankly, that's more bandwidth than a lot of data centers have, as in smaller data centers or the service provider that you are using. Depending on what are their capabilities, do they have capability to tackle such issues? uh, you keep on seeing people getting infected with malware. There are hosting providers who have gone out of business because uh, they got into security issues. Some companies attacked them, some black hat people attacked them, and they were just not able to recover from that. So choose a reliable vendor, pay a little more for quality. Don't try to cut corners over there, because in the long term that becomes a cheaper option for you. So what is your use case? How do you define your use case? uh, Start thinking, take a piece of paper, start thinking on, okay, what's the traffic expected? Are you expecting 10 users a day, 200 users a day, 500 users a day, 1,000 users an hour, 500 users a minute? What's your use case, right? As in, so you have to think on that before you that's one of the key expectations. What's your traffic? How many people do you expect to serve? uh, don't overestimate. Again, everybody wants to everybody thinks that their business should be the best out there. They want to definitely go ahead and ensure that their business is growing, but don't overestimate, don't overcommit. uh, you can definitely grow from where you are, so you can think of that. Don't underestimate. If you are going to let's say if you are building a website for a college, right? And maybe they share their results from their website. So if that's going to happen, don't underestimate saying that, okay, that's going to be one day of the year, or like 364 days nobody's going to be visiting this site that much, so I should just undercommit resources. Don't do that. Ensure you plan out for such things. uh, be cynical of what you built. Don't try to build. There is no perfect solution that was built in a day. Similarly, you cannot decide or put in everything that you need on, even on your website, to your resources in a day. Keep on building and iterate, keep on rebuilding, keep on adding stuff, and depending on what you need, if again, if you, as you keep on adding, you see that there is a drop in performance, then you can think of going to the next level. Again, similarly, don't go over trying to do everything at one go. Don't say that, okay, I will ensure that I put in all the caching that's there, I put in all CDNs, everything together at one go and see what's happening. That actually might be counterproductive. I'll tell you why that might be. uh, Again, what's your uptime expected? You pay for uptime. If you're expecting that it needs to be up 24 by 7, not a single second, it cannot be. It can be down, so you might need redundancy across different geographies. So let's say the ISP cable going from here to Singapore has been cut, and that happens. It doesn't happen frequently, but it happens once in few years. So if that's happening, and if you are hosted out of Singapore, people from India maybe can't access your site. In that case, if your site was maybe on the Europe side, it will still work. So do you want your site to be at multiple locations so nobody misses a single query, or each and every request is served to you? So you have to take those calls, and if you do that, then obviously that is going to cost you, because that doesn't happen for free. uh, Again, criticality of the site: is it a revenue generator or a hobby information website? If it's a simple hobby website or a first blog that you're starting, do you need that kind of redundancy? I think that's a question that you ask yourself. uh, Do you need active development environment support? You need access to Gate, WPCLI, etc. As in, are you into those kind of tools? Do you need access to that? Depending on that, you obviously have to decide on the uh, kind of hosting that you choose as well. Again, support requirements. Normally, these things are sturdy, nothing happens to them. But in case of some problem, uh, what is the kind of support you are expecting? Are you expecting a 24 by 7 support with an SLA of 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours? Or it's okay if something goes down, you respond to them, they come back in 24 hours? Depending on what you are aiming at, that becomes one of your requirements as well. And do you need an auto scaling solution? Like the first uh, example that I gave you, are you building a website for a college or a school who expects to give their results online? If that's the case, then you might not read those resources 24 by 7, 365 days, but maybe the week that the results are going to be out, you need that. I'm sure all of you have gone through this. You go to IRC, as in now those things are better, but IRCTC is there. You have your college results, your MBA entrance results, CA results, all these sites. The day the results are there, trust me, you cannot get in. And you have to spend half an hour just to look at one query. So stuff like that. Do you need auto scaling on demand? Do you need scaling? Maybe not on demand. You can figure out and schedule and upscale and downscale based on your traffic. So stuff like that obviously is important. Now let's get into types of hosting. You know the use cases. What are your use cases? What you want for? What are you looking for? So we'll look at what are the types of hosting that are available in the market. Again, these don't define or these don't encapsulate everything, but majority of what you see is based out of one of these other or is one of these variants in the market. So you have dedicated hosting, VPS hosting, cloud hosting, shared hosting. Uh, Shared hosting is also now with the advent of SSDs. SSDs getting cheaper. People have started going from HD to SSD, and there is definitely a big performance boost over there. There is managed WordPress hosting. I'll go through each of these hosting in detail so you understand what's there in each of these hosting, and that will help you get a better idea of what you would want. So let's start with the first one, dedicated hosting. Uh, Images representative only. This is not actually how obviously the server looks, but count this as one whole machine. So let's say you have a desktop at home, you have i5 i7 desktop with 4 cores, and you have 8 gigs of RAM, and you have whatever hard drive, a TB of hard drive, HDD or SSD, whatever you choose. So that's your server. That is your machine at home. And if you use all resources of this machine to serve your site, so you only host, you add a server software on your computer and make your computer into a server. All this is hypothetical. Obviously there are 20 other things including network and all of that involved, but the idea is that whole machine, whole resources are dedicated to serve only the sites that you host. So you are not sharing these resources with anyone. This is physically allocated completely to you. uh, why would you do that? There might be multiple reasons. Some people do it for storage, some people do it for need of CPU, need of RAM, depending on your use case. As in, there are people who need high memory, who have high memory applications, some people who have high CPU applications, some people who have high GPU applications, some people who need high IO, read and write, they just want storage. So depending on the use case, you would choose this. Dedicated hosting might sound convenient, but obviously it's costly. As in, just imagine uh, your machine at home multiplied by 5 to 10 times of the cost. That's like the cost of a server that's racked up in a data center which is working 24 by 7 and which is connected to a very stable internet connection, and it's available 24 by 7. So obviously those things cost you. So dedicated servers, frankly, for a single use website or a blog or something, most of the times might be an overkill. but it might be required if, let's say, you have a medical site and your data is very important. You cannot share it or put it on a shared location. You want to ensure nobody can access the data ever. In such cases, dedicated and stuff definitely work. uh, what you also have to understand with dedicated or even VPS for that matter, this is as good as I give you a machine, a Linux machine, and you have to control everything inside it. That means from installation of your databases, your software versions, PHP, MySQL, whatever you are using. Uh, in WordPress, obviously, you'll use the standard LAMP stack. That's Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. You have to install all of this, maintain all of this. If the server restarts because of a bug or there is something or the other happens, you put in a patch and that causes instability or a conflicting version of PHP, MySQL, your server won't start. You have to fix all of this. It is your responsibility. There are companies who will offer you managed services where they even help you with all these updates, patches, stuff. Or that's all going to cost you over and beyond the cost of the server. So you would go in for this, but these kind of resources are hardly needed by sites, individual sites at least. Let's move on to VPS. Now, VPS, again, this is representative. This is so that you understand how resources are. So let's consider the same example of your home PC. Uh, 4 cores CPU, 8 GB RAM. And now what you do, the same thing with that 1 TB drive. You create virtual machines. You create 4 smaller machines inside your desktop. So you use, let's say, you can do this or you can try this out as using maybe VirtualBox or something that's available free. Your parent, your machine that you're running on, maybe it's a Linux or a Windows or a Mac machine, and that you create a layer and you create 4 virtual machines. So VM1 can be Windows, Linux, whatever. Similarly, Windows, VM2, VM3, VM4 might be different machines altogether, or different operating systems altogether. And you can allocate, let's say, VM1, I'll give you 1 core, 2 GB RAM. The second VM, I'll give 2 core, 4 GB RAM. Third machine, I'll give 1 core, 2 GB RAM. Fourth machine, I'll give again 2 core, 8 GB RAM. Now, I had originally said that you have 4 CPUs and 8 GB RAM, 4 core CPUs and 8 GB RAM. How am I allocating so many CPUs and so many RAM? That is how VPSs normally work. You oversell. This is called as overselling, where even though I have 4 cores and 8 GB RAM, I might be selling, let's say, 8 core and 16 GB RAM. Why do providers do that? Frankly, no machine is going to be running 100% all the time. So you will never run on 100% CPU, 100% RAM all the time. There will be spikes, there will be ups and downs in traffic, and normally that neutralizes the usage pattern over. So again, this is an example. This is not exactly how it is done. There is a logic, there is a science involved around it. And again, that usage also depends. Again, in VPSs also you have, similar to dedicated, high CPU, high RAM, or high compute power, high memory, or high graphic VMs. So this normally, so VM would be a smaller or a less powerful daddy, if you ask me. In a way, the VM1, the virtual machine that has been made, it's completely isolated. So VM1 cannot read data in VM2, VM2 cannot read data in VM3, similarly vice versa. So what happens is, physically these are they are logically created into separate partitions, separate images. So you, one image cannot read through the other image. So that data privacy exists. But in case where you don't need 1 TB and 2 TB storage and stuff, and you don't need so much CPU, but you need your dedicated space, people go in for VMs. The same concerns, the same problem that exists with dedicated also exists over here. Uh, the VM is like a machine that's given to you. Patching, upgrading, everything is your problem. Anything happens to that VM, the parent machine will always be running. That's technically called the hypervisor. That will be running. These machines inside the hypervisor may go down, but if it is managed by you, then you have to figure out why it's down. It will not go down because of the parent. but it will go down because some configuration problem on your machine. It's as good as installing something problematic driver or something on your machine and it crashes and doesn't boot up. So you have to try and fix it, or go to a provider who can reset or pay for managed services over there as well. Moving on to cloud hosting. Cloud hosting, again, representative. Don't hold me to this. Uh, it is what I would call an extended VPS. In this, why I have shown it in this way? Again, for like 5 CPUs, again, five obviously is not going to be there, but 5 CPUs, five RAM slots, and the site data that you see, that's mainly storage. So that storage and so basically compute and memory is separate, storage is separate. Storage can be self storage or some of the other redundant fast storage, and CPU, RAM, and your content are connected via network. So how does this work? Here this is more like a larger scalable VPS, where I can, let's say, allocate first two cores of CPU and 4 GB RAM to site 1. Site 2, I will allocate maybe one CPU and more RAM and stuff. And if I run out and tomorrow, let's say, site 1 wants 4 more cores and 8 more GB RAM, you can keep on adding that to this site. Unlike the last phase where one machine had a limitation, you can't oversell beyond a point because their performance will go for a toss. Here you can keep on adding more CPUs to the entire cluster and keep on allocating it to whichever site needs is. So maybe 4 sites need lesser storage, one site needs a lot more storage, and the storage is also not limited. In the previous one, the in VPS, the parent daddy had, let's say, 1 TB. So storage max you can go also is to a certain limit. You can go up to, let's say, allocate 950 GB of hard drive. But if somebody one site only requires 900, then obviously you can't use that for 5 different VMs, right? So here you can keep on adding storage, you can keep on adding CPU, RAM, and this is scalable. So this can scale automatically, this can scale manually, but there is no limitation. There is no downtime that you need that, okay, no, if I need to add more CPU, RAM, I don't have to shut the site down, go to a new machine with more resources and start it up over there. Here it happens on the fly, and that's cloud in a nutshell for you. This is what's normally used, and if you're starting out, frankly, this is what you should be using. uh, Shared hosting is, again, let's go with the same example. The dedicated box that you had, 4 core CPU, 8 GB RAM, that's the box. But now what do you do over here is, in the same hard drive, instead of having one site or instead of having 4 VMs, I put in unlimited sites or n number of sites. That can be from, depending on the hosting provider, they can be from 200, 500, 1000, 2000 to even 5000 sites. I've seen servers with 5 and 6000 sites as well. So this can be in any of that range. So what this does is, the same CPU, RAM is now shared between all of these websites. So ideally, if you ask me, out of all the three before previous configurations that I showed you, frankly, site 1 may be able to access all 4 cores and all 8 GB RAM, while in any of the other cases except Dedi, you can't access that much directly on the fly or directly out of the box. And that would mean that shared obviously works good enough, but what happens when there are 2000 sites? Even small requests add up. So no single site is ever going to be able to eat or consume 4 cores and 8 GB RAM. And if one site is consuming that much, then the hosting provider will figure out that that one site is causing performance issues to all other 1000, 2000 sites, and tell them, okay, boss, you need to go to a dedicated resource. You cannot be on a shared box like this, because you are resulting into performance degradation of everybody else. So that's obviously a drawback of that site. But most of the hosting providers have checks in place to try and avoid that. 5-10 years back, maybe that was not there. There are a lot of tools, even like you might have heard of Cloud Linux and stuff, where you can limit the resource, the upper limit of the resource that each site can use. But the resources that are normally given are good enough for your websites to run a normal blog, a normal portal and stuff. All of that works on this configuration as well. So ideally, this becomes the cheapest when it comes to user cost. Simple reason, it's like you take a big hall and you get 100 people to live in it. You get 4 people to live in it. You get one person to live in it. The cost of that room always remains the same. So that's how the cost of these products ideally vary. Manage WordPress hosting. This is something that I'm sure you guys have seen. And then since you're WordPress, you are looking to build something on WordPress, or if you're learning on WordPress, you might have heard of this when you go to any of the hosting providers site. So what is manage WordPress hosting, and where can you have it? So manage WordPress hosting is an offering that's built on WordPress, but managed WordPress hosting is not limited or doesn't have its own, what I would say, a particular architecture. It can be built on a VPS, on cloud, on shared, on dedicated. Frankly, anywhere you want, managed WordPress can be given. So this depends on the provider you are with. So there are some providers who give it on VPSs. There are some providers who give this on cloud. There are some providers who give it on shared, and some providers who even give this on daily. So what is a managed WordPress hosting offering? So managed WordPress hosting offering is mainly an offering where it is catered, or what I would say is it is tweaked, and performance benefits enhancements are done to support WordPress as an offering. So that means database optimization is done, security is controlled based on that. You have WordPress upgrades, updates pre-built in. There are maybe backups built in, depending on the providers. Again, all these features will depend on your provider. So it's optimized mainly to host WordPress sites. That doesn't mean it cannot host anything else. Again, it's LAMP stack, right? It's Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. But those enhancements, those caching layers and stuff built for WordPress specifically will ensure that your WordPress site performance is much better than just going for a normal non-optimized share hosting, because it's optimized for anything that comes in, right? It's not optimized for one particular thing. So managed WordPress hosting works depending on where you buy it from, whom you buy it from, and how it has been built. It may be a value add or just a gimmick and to take your money, frankly. So it depends on the provider again. Now that you know all types of hosting, what next? These are a few caveats that you should always keep in mind. No matter where you are buying or where you are starting off, always own your domain name. This might sound simple, but a lot of people make this mistake. People buy hosting from someone, one friend that I know, or somebody who has a shop, or your IT person, or your person who helps you with computers and stuff. If the domain name is registered in their name, you are not the rightful owner, even though you might have paid them. And if you go to a registrar from whom you have bought this, they will not recognize you, because the registrant name, the person who has registered, the email ID, the phone number, is you are nowhere listed. So own your own domain name. Go to any of these websites. Go to Bluehost, go to GoDaddy, whichever website that you like. As in, there is no limitation on what you can use or where you can go to. Go to a site that you like and buy the domain name from there. So you own that domain name. If you don't deal with data that is critical, frankly, VPS, Dedi, and cloud can be avoided. You may not require that unless and until you reach that point that you need that kind of performance, you need that kind of support and stuff. Go in with shared hosting. Shared hosting has matured over time a lot. The resources, the hardware that is normally used in shared hosting for with good products is crazy. I can tell you for a fact, like we have 64 core boxes with 196 GB RAM and stuff. They are monster boxes. Frankly, at one point of time, I have seen servers running on Pentium 3 at that moment with 1 and 2 GB RAM. So it's grown a lot from there, and it can definitely help you support your sites. So look at that. Don't invest directly in these VPS dedicated unless and until you need it. Uh, One thing that you'll see on all most of the providers, I would be not all. Some providers are upfront. Some providers uh, have things in fine print where they put in unlimited, unmetered resources. What does this mean? They say, okay, you can have one domain, unlimited domains with unlimited data transfer, unlimited storage and stuff at $5. Do you think that's possible? As in, look at your own machines. Do you think you can store unlimited data in your machine? You have to pay, you have to keep on increasing resources. Internet bandwidth, can that be unlimited? You pay per GB, right? There is nothing unmetered. Even the unlimited plans that we have, after a particular threshold, it's throttled, right? So take unlimited with a pinch of salt. Understand what those actual limits are. Frankly, they are normally generous limits. Uh, from my experience, less than 0.5% of people hit those limits ever. But if you hit those limits, then obviously they are going to be pulled up. But don't expect you to get the world by paying $2 and $5. So again, this is limit on normal shared, pro might have more limits. So let's say if you have a normal shared server which has 2000 or 3000 websites on it, the number of CPU cycles and memory, the amount of memory your site will get, will be limited to, let's say, X. On pro servers, which is the costlier shared or the premium shared servers, you will have a lower density. Instead of 2000, it will be 500. You will get 4x the resources of what you'll get on a normal shared server. So you pay more. Essentially, you get resources equivalent to what you're paying on the website, and that's how it works. Uh, Go for unmanaged VPS dedicated cloud only if you know server administration, because that can be a handful. A lot of people I know just go and say, okay, DigitalOcean gives me a $5 VM. Why shouldn't I go for that? My site works perfectly fine. Fine till it works. If something happens, if you get attacked, some or the other problem happens, then if your site is critical, it's going to go down. If you're building a site to learn, brilliant, as in you can take a VPS. It's as good as learning Linux administration for yourself, right? Linux administration has crazy amount of things in it. Basic, you will get commands online which will help you figure out how to uh, set up a server, and all that will happen. But the problem is when you have to literally get to something and try and fix a problem, that's when it gets difficult. So if it is a critical site, that downtime will not be something that you will be okay with. So think of that. If you have someone in the administration team who can handle it, if you have a team in your office, go for it, and there is no reason why you can't go for it. VPS ready doesn't always mean faster hosting. Yeah, this is very critical. People think if I buy a 4-core 8 GB RAM machine or a heavier machine, it's going to run much faster than my shared hosting or my managed WordPress hosting. That's not always the case. It depends. Uh, Again, managed hosting might be optimized. You might have CDNs, caching layers pre-built, which you will not get by default on your VPS or dedicated. So that might result into slower site loads than your shared hosting or your managed WordPress hosting. So it depends. As in, if you know how to optimize your VPS steady, you will be able to get that speed. But if you don't know what you're doing, that doesn't always mean faster hosting. Select a service that gives you inbuilt caching. So the caching is at multiple layers. So you will get software caching, hardware caching, you'll get caching at server level and stuff. So look at provider who gives you server level caching, or uh, why I say that is your software caching. So if you have ever worked with WordPress, you'll know there are caching plugins, right? WP cache, and there are multiple plugins that are there. those can enhance your performance, but up to a certain level. After that, if your requests keep on increasing, you will not exponentially grow your performance. It will then keep on dropping as you keep on getting more requests, because there are limitations based on number of PHP connections, number of inbound connections and stuff. There are multiple things that happen. If you have a server level caching before your site is called or your resources are called, the caching layer before that answers it, so it doesn't even reach your package. So stuff like that helps you. uh, Even for databases, there is Redis caching, that the varnish caching is there for your content and stuff. So there are multiple layers of caching depending on your provider. If your provider gives you that, that will definitely help you improve your performance over your standard shared hosting provider. Use a CDN. This is something people take for granted. CDNs work brilliantly. CDN work in different ways. Again, CDN can be a different topic altogether. You can look up that. You can go for CDNs like Cloudflare, that's free. Choose a free CDN that works well. It will help you in multiple ways, not only loading your site better, it will also give you a web application firewall. So people will hit or get the content from the CDN rather than your server directly. So there is a layer of this thing unknown, where is your server, so you won't get attacked. The attack will come on the CDN first, and they have mechanisms to thwart those attacks and stuff. So it helps you in that way as well. uh, why choose a reliable vendor? This is very critical. Better quality infra, they are going to pay for that infra. I know there are hosting companies who have random servers. They have half is Dell, half is Supermicro, half is some other unknown. Don't go for that, because that inconsistency will result into them facing problems when it comes to support. If something goes down, the hardware is not available, stuff like that. If a provider is buying branded infra from a particular provider, their return rates, their deliveries, their replacements happen a lot faster. So you should go in for those kind of providers. Better data center, they'll go for tier 4 data centers, not tier 3 data centers. As in tier 4 is obviously better than tier 3. uh, Better bandwidth, better connectivity, lesser downtimes, stuff like that. Better support, they will be able to have a 24/17. If you're going with a brand that's starting out, maybe they just have 10 people in their team who are doing everything. Can you expect 24/7 support? So that should be at the back of your mind as well. Uh, with better support also comes knowledge based articles, videos, blogs, uh, multiple ways of reaching them, chats, tickets, emails, calls. You can go to a provider who's giving you at $1, but to for anything, if you just have to call them, it's going to be costly for you. Like, you can't do IST calls for support. Better security. Normally, these kind of providers have their own security teams who are looking at, who have actively monitoring and ensuring they're updated with everything that's happening, and they are responsible for patching those systems time and again. So you don't come to know after your site is hacked that there was some vulnerability that your provider didn't know. So stuff like this obviously helps. Better spam protection and management of your other services uptime and stuff. As in, spam is a very big problem. uh, if you have forms and stuff, uh, you will know that you will keep on getting somebody attacks, they get your password, or there is some vulnerability on your plugin. You start seeing spam are going out and stuff, and then the next thing you know that your domain is suspended because you spent 1,000 people a lot of spam and you did nothing at all. So stuff like this is something that the reliable vendor will be able to control. uh, Again, reliable vendors do give you uptime guarantees, 99.99% uptime guarantees and stuff. So because that's again network and infra guarantee. uh, so they have the capability, they have the infra to be able to give you this. Backups, one of the biggest problems. No, you do everything, but if something happens to your site, maybe there is some disaster at the data center, there needs to be a way to get all your data back. If, for God forbid, you don't have your data backed up, then what? Then where are you? So reliable vendors normally have offsite backups at third party locations and not their own center, because if the data center goes down, if the backups are there, it's as good as having the same hard drive making C drive, D drive, and then the whole drive crashing. Backup is on D, everything goes right. So it's the same funda. Virus malware protection. So actively, their data is managed, monitored. They actively scan. They don't wait on someone to come scan manually and see, okay, there is a malware infection. So reliable vendors do spend a lot of time and money on this, and that's what adds to their reliability. Bottom line, in the long run, this tends to be cheaper than what you would normally get at a cheaper provider. Because if you are hit with any problems, then your cheap vendor is not going to be able to help you out with any of those items, and you will start losing out on your site. Cool, that's all I had. Hope this was helpful for you. You can reach out to me on my Twitter or LinkedIn account as well. And yep, thanks a lot for attending this.